All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode number 46 of my weekly GEMP game review series. I am your host, Chris Gogolin. Give me just a second here while we get Batman out of the way. We'll take a quick peek at what's going on. A couple games here in the GEMP lobby we can take a look at what's going on with this Old Allies map game. And then a Throne Room Watto game should be an interesting matchup. I do want to highlight a couple quick things on the PC forums, of course. First, upcoming major events. If you're in Europe, you've got the European Championships in Amsterdam in July. So start planning your travel for that because that's about 3 months away. World Championships are in Germany this year. Those are 5 months, a little over 5 months away from that. And the next major North American event that you can still sign up for, we haven't taken signups yet, will be the North American Continentals in Minneapolis, Minnesota, also known as the John Anderson Memorial Tournament. John passed away last year and was from the area and a big piece of our community, so this year's Continental's named after him. The Match Play Championships, which I've been promoting for the last few weeks, are coming up later this month. Registration for that is now closed, and last night we did the reveal of the bracket. We'll take a quick peek at that. Here is the bracket. You can find it on the forums. Just go here, and then there's a sub-forum for bracket. Tomorrow, we give everybody 2 days. If anything looks weird, if you're playing a possible teammate or something like that, you have until tomorrow night to let us know. So far, it's been about 24 hours, and we haven't heard any complaints yet, other than the fact that I misnumbered somebody. Ming had him in as a 7-11 game. Typoed that. It should be a 7-10, but that was fixed. Sorry about that, Ming. But otherwise, so far the bracket seems like it's going to hold up, and then once that is, we'll get our prediction contest up and running, and the winner of that will get some cool foil slips or autographed cards. No, I hit the wrong button. But yeah, so there is the bracket. Certainly, a few more buys than we would have liked. We've only have 50 players, so there's 14 people who are getting a first round buy. There'll be 18 people competing in. I'm sorry, there'll be 36 people competing in round one. So there'll be 18 people moving into the consolation bracket for round two. So the top two seeds who will end up getting a. Now, actually, everybody will get a buy except the bottom four seeds. They'll do a play-in game. That's how that'll work. Make more sense to get us down to 16 players and then proceed with a normal bracket from there. No, I don't want to buy the stupid pay version of malware. The free version is just fine. Okay. So, but the regular bracket, obviously some interesting matchups and some consideration for featured matchups for potentials for the thing. I mean, obviously, I mentioned last night Scott and Jerry, I think, would make a great featured match for round one. Bill and Sean could be a good one as well. Yeah, I think some of these other games. I mean, they should be interesting and whatnot. Jan and Sam could be a good one as well. Sam not having played a whole lot, but I think given the people what they want would probably be the advocate against Queso, right? That's got to be a pretty good contender for round one featured match when we get there in a couple weeks. So, but all that bracket information can be found, like I said, on the PC forums there. And we are just going to pop into one of these games here and just see what's going on. And then we'll go back and take a peek at the OCS standings and stuff like that. People did, have sent me requests like, how do you beat Old Allies? It's like, if I knew that, I'd be winning all the tournaments because the simple truth is that the decks that beat Old Allies typically don't beat Throne Room Hitco. So you kind of have to pick your poison. With a match play tournament, it gets to be a little more interesting because you can kind of pick what you are more likely to think your opponent's on. But in a standard Swiss event, well, you know how it goes. If you build your deck to beat Old Allies, you'll play nothing but Throne Room and Hitco all day. And if you build the deck that beats them, you'll play Old Allies like 3 times. So you're kind of just, damned if you do, damned if you don't. The decks I've seen have the most success against old allies are ones that can keep them out of space. If you can keep them out of space, hey, thank you for the subscription. That's the other thing too, of course. Thanks, Nutritious. Don't forget to renew your monthly subscriptions. I do have. I don't know if I showed off the foils for this yet. If I showed everybody Chopper, let's hang on a second here. Chopper is the foil for the initial part of the subscription. If you can see Chopper here, a nice little full template foil. That's the one you get for initially signing up. And then the 3-month foil, I forget what that is offhand. I know the 6-month is Ezra, because I just had to ask Scott to start printing those. So that way we can hand some of those out at the NPC. The 3-month, I forget offhand which one that is, but those are also being printed as well. And we'll get those out as well. But of course, if you have your Twitch Prime, every month, just keep renewing it and giving, because you get a free subscription, so you might as well, use it on us, right? And I feel like my camera's a little big there. Let me shrink that down. There we go. But anywho, as I was saying, the decks that seem to do the best against old allies tend to be the ones that can force them to be one-dimensional. If you can kick them out of space, you tend to have a lot more success because, they don't have the ability to, having to get around battle plan and things like that can be tricky for them. They don't do a lot of damage on their ground drains and things like that. It's kind of more of a grindy deck. So if they have to pay to keep deploying their guys, pay to retrieve, pay to move stuff around, it can get a little challenging for them down the end. So being able to kick them out of space is usually when I see them have the most success against them, but that's easier said than done. The objective makes it very difficult to get rid of things because of this subtract 2 from a destiny draw once per battle. So if you can prevent battle destinies from cracking your immunity to attrition, you can prevent weapons from shooting your ships, and then you have this other little bonus here. While with Han, your episode 7 characters and starships are defense value +2. So Han on the Falcon subtracts 2 from the destiny and it's unhittable is really what it comes down to. You need an 8 to hit the Falcon when you've got like Han and Lando on it. It's practically impossible. Or Corrin Horn or something like that. So easier said than done. Getting in a good beatdown on the ground is also a good way. Sometimes they do get themselves stretched a little thin. They try and rely on a couple of key interrupts. Maybe and it's a trap or something like that. A couple of copies of barrier. So if you can get a good beatdown battle through, that can sometimes be a good way to turn a game as well. But typically the longer the game goes, usually the more it favors old allies because they have ways to mitigate damage. They have ways to grind stuff out. They have ways to retrieve characters, because of Leia and because of Rose. So it's just kind of one of those pain in the ass decks that just keeps hanging around until you rope it open and punch yourself out. That's why a deck like Scum tends to match up a little better with old allies because they do the same thing. They have the ability to go to space early with the objective, getting you multiple ships out of your deck, and they have the ability to recur their characters back. So Scum is a deck I've seen match up very well with it, both MCOS and Court. They attack it differently, but the overall approach seems to work the same. This could be really interesting here. Dorsch is clearly behind in this game. He's down 27 to 14 in life force counts, so he's certainly in a bit of a pickle. But now it's going to come down to what's going on here. He's got Kylo with the weapon. So first off, he's initiating battle. So Snoke's going to make him lose 1 because everyone here is first order characters. That's Snoke's extra text. All your ability provided by first order characters. Opponent loses a force. So that's cost him 1. Then you got Kylo's lightsaber, which is going to hit him. Yep. Kind of ironic. Kylo hitting Han inside the deflector shield control room of the Star Killer base. It's about as close as you can get to as it happened in the movies, right? That's going to make him forfeit 0 and make him lose a force. And then he's outpowered by about 12 right now, plus Destiny draws here. And that's where it's going to come down to, is there a Hoojix in hand? Oh, actually they both had to lose one, didn't they? Because the other card isn't out. Both players lose a force. Yeah, usually there's, what's that card called? The hologram card, Spectre of the Supreme Leader, that makes you not lose force to Kylo. So he subtracted 2 from it, and he drew a 5, so 19 to 9, 10 rather. So he's down by 9. Okay, he's going to have to peel 9 cards, plus 2 more from Kylo, because Kylo's text says whenever a player loses a battle here, that player loses 2 force. So 1 for the battle with Snoke, 1 for hitting him, and 2 for Kylo. That's a 4 force swing right there. And we haven't even gotten to the battle damage yet. So that's one of the benefits of first order cards. You'll see Snoke go away. That'll just make Kylo more power, but was Solo the Resistance? He did have the Hoojix. Okay. Some decks, some versions of Old Allies don't play a copy of Hoojix. Some do. Batmouse was playing the kind that does. You can always click on the objective here. Extra resistance agent is Leia. Okay, so just because he controlled, because that's the requirement, the flip is first order guys have to control 2 battlegrounds. So he managed to get that done. But he is getting punished still pretty good here. Between the Tantive, adding an icon. This is the other problem too, is that you stack up the system here to keep them off it, and then they just put the Tantive over here. And then you end up doing this chase game with the Tantive, where this is a battleground while they have the Tantive here, and then you move over to block their drain, and then they move back over to Jakku, and now you're at a non-battleground, so now you're paying for your drains for that turn, and then you got to chase them back. And that is a drawback for the map matchup. But, I mean, what are your alternatives? Don't play Starkiller base and the Starkiller base sites? Well, then you're kind of fishing for force icons all game, and that's not a great way to go about it. I mean, what else could you deploy? Are there any other Episode 7 locations that would be worth starting instead? Not yet, really, but maybe in future sets. Oh, come on. You know you've seen that movie by now. At least 5 or 6 times, Bill. Only 3 by choice, but at least once or twice I'm sure you've seen it. Other people making you watch it again. Oh. One of the other unfortunate drawbacks that some people forget about, the flip side of the objective. Unless BB-8 on table, opponent's force retrieval is cancelled. One of the strong points of map is that Batmouse just tried to play a Jedi Levitation and spent 3 force to retrieve a character from hand, from lost pile into hand, but his retrieval's cancelled, so he just paid 3 force and lost an interrupt for nothing. So, and this is the other part that they lull you into, because you have to give chase, because you don't want to keep eating your drain over here, so you're always moving to them, and when you're moving to them, you end up fighting on their terms, and that's never the good thing that you want to do. You know, whenever I say this, any deck you play, you pretty much always want to be dictating the battles on your terms. You don't want to let your opponent be dictating the terms of the battles, because they're always going to make sure that they're in their favor. And here we go here. You know, Tantive and Poe, okay, it's immune to less than 5, it's 2 Destiny, it's like 8 power. Now you slap Wedge and Anakin on top of it, and now it's up to 14 power. He's adding 1 to each of his Destiny draws because of Anakin. He just makes the Finalizer immune to less attrition now. It was only immune to less than 5 to begin with, right? So now it's not really immune to anything. But hey, it's a 7 Destiny card that some people play because it also stops TTO and carbon chamber testing damage. So the Leia is a resistance agent. She has to be present at a battleground site. So her being inside the Falcon, she's not considered present. She has presence, but she's not present. So therefore, the objective is flipped. Even though Leia is, here, she just has to get out, and that'll flip the objective back. But then she's easier to hit with weapons like, Kylo's lightsaber and the blaster, first order blasters. And this is probably going to spell doom for Dorsch here. He can close call that one and subtract 3 from the draw to make it just a 3. But Batmouse is going to get a second Battle Destiny here in a second. And that's a 5. So he still has 8, which is going to get rid of... it'll get rid of the shuttle, and I think that's Mitaka, right? Yeah. They'll cover 8. And meanwhile, Darkseid will just draw a 4, which then gets subtracted down to a 2, and this is immune to less than 5 because of Poe, and you kind of get nothing. Cards like A Dark Time for the Rebellion or Imperial Justice, virtual, are very good against old allies to keep them from doing the Destiny manipulation stuff. The Destiny manipulation is once per battle involving a resistance character. So I do like a Dark Time because Dark Time works for the remainder of turn. So you play that once and then, it protects you for if you're going to battle in 2 or 3 places from them using their objective multiple times. Whereas with Justice, it's only during that battle. So you have to keep picking cards up and then you run out of cards on Justice. So, they'll usually, sometimes they grab a Dark Time. But, running 1 or 2 copies of a Dark Time, not a bad way to go, especially with Throne Room still being popular, because then that punishes them as well. So that might be a tech card that happens to work well against both sides. Give you a bit more favorable matchup with that. But, yeah, and then the Tandem will move away, and that'll leave the Finalizer stranded at the non-battleground. And what are its choices? Move over into the Tantive? Well, no, that's not going to happen. So you'll just sit here and pay 3 to drain for 1, because Finalizer adds 1 to your Force Drains at Episode 7 systems, which the Starkiller base is. So, if this is a match play situation, obviously there are things that Dorsch could do to, he can drain a few spots and he can keep doing sources of damage and things like that to reduce the deficit, leading him into game number 2. But for right now, if in an OCS game where it's just strictly wins and losses, it's looking pretty likely that Batmouse is going to get the win here. So we're going to pop back into the lobby for a second, because I did want to check out this other game between Tom and Shaw. We had a little Watto versus Throne Room action. Again, Throne Room still being popular, so Dark Time not being not a bad meta card slot. It looks like Watto's got a pile of guys on the board, and Throne Room does not have much to work with here. Throne Room can be a tough matchup for Watto simply because they don't get to go first. So they can't do that little first turn damage. or at least it's a bit riskier to do Oslo Watto as they normally set up, one at each site and kind of do the 2 quick ping damage and hopefully make you burn a key card or something like that, and then just consolidate those guys usually. Against Thronum, they have to be a little bit slower, a little bit more deliberate. The plus side to it, though, is that Thronum typically doesn't really have a lot of ground battlegrounds, so they're going to end up coming to your sites anyway. So it kind of plays into a little bit what Watto wants to do. If it can uh, weather the early storm and not set themselves up trying to go too fast, where you get caught with your nose open and punched in the face. So, but certainly there's a lot of deck diversity these days. I mean, obviously, old allies and throne room seem to be the most popular for light side, but occasionally you also see uh, a little QMC. I've seen no idea quite a bit the last couple of days. Um, Watcher Step still gets played from time to time, and there are some other light side decks out there. Dark side seems to be the one that's always more diverse, just because there's different, strong platforms and strong character groups. You've got first order guys, you've got good alien decks, you've got good imperial decks. Ral Ops, entanglements. You've got good mains decks with hunt down, bring them before me. Always two there are, literally. You've got good scum, alien decks with Black Sun, MCOS, Court. Well, there's 3 there, but and then first order decks, map, and sometimes they get splashed into other decks. You see first order off of Endor Operations or Bring Them Before Me or other platforms. So Watto first order was a thing for a little while. So good deck diversity right now in the current environment, at least for dark side. Light side's getting a little better. We're starting to see a few more light side decks grow in popularity, and Tom's just gonna scoop it. All right, so congratulations to Mr. Shaw. Let's go check the scoreboard because he was doing really well. Let's see if that's holding up still. He picks up another win here, so that puts him up to 9-1. Certainly a strong month for Mr. Shaw. With just 2 games left to play at 9-1, he's in a pretty good spot to potentially qualify this month. Jared's right behind him, 8-2. And these guys down here are 6-2, 5-2. No, these are 5-3. 5-3, 5-2. These guys are all. There's Matt at 5-0. A couple other guys in this 3-2 kind of range, and a bunch of 3-0s down here. So we're about a third of the way through the month. We'll call it a quarter of the way through the month. So all kinds of games left to be played, and still a lot of people who have yet to get started for the month. And then, of course, the GEM PC is still going on here. But the other thing people wanted to talk about was Ral Ops. We did that in a few episodes back, but we'll take a quick peek in on this Ral Ops game. Ral Ops being another strong deck that's kind of risen to the forefront in the last couple of months here, since it's a revamp, if you will, with the new virtual objective that came out in set 10. You see lots of this code clearance domination stuff, lots of ability 3 Imperials that get nice little forfeit boosts instead of becoming forfeits 7 and 8. Even lets a guy like General Taj here tag Taj. I like Taj. Makes him sound kind of Frenchy, fancy, which he kind of looks. Get a little boost from it. He's a leader. He's got decent ratio. When he's a 3-7, he's got good ratios. 3-4, not so great. 3-7, good ratios. But he's another Imperial leader who triggers things like Tarkin's Bounty or triggers adding a Destiny with Tarkin. He just requires to be in with any Imperial, but some of the other guys do require Imperial leaders. But No Idea is certainly another deck that I still don't think we've quite found the best version of yet. And I've seen a few of them. I've seen more ground-heavy versions. I've seen versions that play a lot more space-heavy, and just try and just hold this one interior site to do some ping damage, and kind of pile it up with like 4 or 5 guys, and just be like, hey, I've got like 15 power, and I'm really hard to hit, and I'm just gonna drain 1 and ping for 2, and then I'm gonna go, play around in space with 5 or 6 ships, and just try and lock down this interior site. And then you've got decks that are a bit more ground heavy, which want to try and spread out on the ground and maximize the drains and the ping damage from Stardust, and clear out a lot of the dark side characters. Those are usually the ones that run Nightfall, which is what we've got here. Battle there, both sides add a destiny to power, and spies deploy free to sites under nighttime conditions. That's what the Imperial Detention Shield helps against. For opponent to deploy a card, vehicle, or starship for free, except by its own game text, they have to first use 2 force. So it's not their own game text, it's Nightfall's game text that makes them deploy for free. So they cost 2 each, all your spies. So costs 2. Some of these other guys are a bit bigger, because the objective here, Rebel troopers are spies, so it certainly gives you a few more spies in your deck. Chirrut and Baze are also spies. So, and then I'll let you generate some quick power, and then you get to use wonderful things like Sabine. Basically just says, while with an Imperial or 2 Rebels, whenever you win a battle here, opponent loses 2 force. She also gets great ratios with the Insurrection combo here, making all your ability 2 Rebels forfeit +2, so Sabine ends up being forfeit 8 and things like that. So you get quick power, just like that. These 5 guys who didn't really cost a lot to put down, between Nightfall and whatnot, and suddenly you're at power 32. So Mr. Brenson considering whether to use the exchange text on Ral Ops now, which says whenever you draw a battle destiny, you can exchange a card in hand with a card of the same type in lost pile. So if you want to get an interrupt back, you throw an interrupt into your lost pile and you take 1 back. It's not the card you drew, it's just whatever card from hand you want to exchange. If he wants, who's this? Marek Steel back, he can put any Imperial, because it's icon, it's not character, it's icon that you match up with. He'd put an Imperial into his lost pile, and he would take Marek back. And it's exchange, it's not retrieve, so you don't have to pay for it or worry about things like simple tricks stopping that from happening. Yeah, always some good chat between the players, especially in Steve Brenson's games. There's usually something kind of quirky or awkward that he will say at some point in time that you're never quite sure, is he serious, is he kidding? He has a very particular sense of humor. I've been accused of that myself from time to time too, so no harm, no foul there. But hope everybody, welcome to the new guys. Some of you guys who looks like you're newer to the channel. Don't forget, of course, to follow us. Just hit that little heart in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Also, if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can link it to Twitch. You get a free Twitch subscription each month for doing that. Instead of paying $5 a month to subscribe to your favorite channel, you don't have to pay anything because you've already paid Amazon for that. So Amazon kicks that back to you in the form of a free Twitch subscription, which we hope you will use on our channel to help continue to sponsor content like you're watching, and all of our live event streaming as well, which we do on our Twitch channel. There'll be plenty of featured matchups at the Match Play Championship coming up at the end of the month. between the main event and the consolation bracket. So we'll certainly try and get as many matchups as we can over to you guys. And you'll have Matt Sokol, 2000 World Champion, will be doing commentary. And I hear he'll be joined by Aaron Kingery, at least for some part of the day. It'll be Matt's first time doing commentary, so go easy on him. Alright, so we did make the exchange, I guess, and get Marek Steele back. Who did he swap in? He threw away Mahdi, who's also not bad in his current deploys -2. 2 Imperial Starships on table, so if you got a couple ships out, Mahdi deploys for 1, and with code clearance, he's forfeit 8. That's a pretty good deploy forfeit combination. Also happens to subtract 1 from forfeit of Rebel pilots. You'd be surprised how often that, coming up 1 forfeit short makes you have to lose a second guy or a third guy, or, a third card, rather. That kind of screws up everything. But we don't see a third site yet from Mr. Brenson, so either he missed the pull, it looks like, for the site. Normally by this point in the game, Ral Ops would have 3 sites out, and they'd be trying to flip. But it looks like he's maybe had some bad luck getting his locations out, and in turn has spent his time going elsewhere. And he's going to have to run those guys away. He did a good job of blocking the Tanev here, but, I mean, that's a Tanev with Mon Mothma, no biggie D. Radis, okay, he doesn't do a whole lot. And Crick's not doing a whole lot either. So it looks like a pretty unassuming Tantive, right? It's just Tanev and Radis, which is just 1 battle destiny. Cricks can pull you guys into hand, and Mothma lets you take your destiny draw into hand. So there's some synergy and stuff there, and there's plenty of extra forfeit fodder that you can throw away. But, Radis, maybe with a rebel leadership or something, might add a second destiny, but not the most threatening thing. Starfighter, opponent can't cancel or substitute battle destinies here, but they can certainly draw multiples. But I do like this No Idea platform. It reminds me more of, there was a Legacy deck that was kind of similar that ran around with, the spies on Coruscant, basically trying to infiltrate and steal information for the rebellion. And it was kind of all the scrub, Rogue Squadron X-Wing guys, Zev and Jack Porkins and Dak and those guys, which I guess did a lot of stuff in the books that, you didn't really hear about in the movies. But people went back in and filled in their backstories in great detail in the books, made them a bit more heroic than what we had time to see on the silver screen. And here's where things are going to get interesting, because there's the Bright Hope, and Stubley's got 11 more cards in his hand and 15 more Force to work with. And there's Hera, who's going to add a second destiny because she's with an Imperial or 2 Rebels. And the Bright Hope is going to subtract from his, because what the Bright Hope does is if it's in battle with another Rebel capital ship, draw destiny and subtract that from opponent's attrition and total power. Fun fact, we've covered this before, but if they don't draw battle destiny, you can't use the Bright Hope's text because they don't have any attrition to subtract from. Even though it's attrition and power, and you're like, well, they've got a power total, because it's and, you have to be able to subtract from both. It's a weird kind of wording on the way the card is written, but so, and now we get Ray, and Ray fishes out a card, and now we've got Torin Farr. Total battle destiny here is +1, +2 of piloting a transport, which the Bright Hope is. Once per turn, if a battle just ended, may rescue, retrieve from lost pile, or stack on evac a rebel of ability less than 3 forfeited from same location this turn. So if you have a rebel of ability less than 3, which I don't think he does right now, because Hera, Radis, Crix, and Mothma are all ability 3. But if he forfeited one of them, he could then use Hera and, use Torn Far and retrieve it. He's also going to use Boosh over here to lock down this drain so he doesn't have to chase. And Stubbley is in a pretty commanding position right now. He's going to clear out this Raltier system. This Mara Jade ship is going to be in for some trouble here, because you've got Rey adding 1 to the total and Torn Far's adding 2. And there's the leadership, which is going to prevent Darkseid from drawing multiples. That's because Radis is there. He also could have used it the other way to add a Destiny, but he's trying to minimize what he loses, which is understandable. The downside to playing decks with lots of characters like No Idea is that when you draw them for Destiny, it's not so great. However, with the adders, that 4 becomes a 7, so 7's pretty good. Does not actually clear everything, because code clearance makes Marek Steel forfeit 8. And a good redraw there. That'll probably be Crix who's going to say bye-bye. But still down 10 in power. Oh, I forgot about Bright Hope. We talked about that earlier. So he subtracts 4 from it now. So he just has attrition of 2, which is anybody at this point that he wants to lose, he can, to cover that 2. And it's going to be Mon Mothma. And now it's a 14 battle damage swing, which means it's going to get the guy for 8 and the ship covers 7. So that was 15. So it's just enough to cover. But now you look at the board position and you feel like No Idea is in a pretty good spot. Tanev is making this a battleground. They've got this ground site battleground, so they're not paying for their force drains. So you've got a good drain 1. This is just a drain of 1 as well. But you also get the Stardust card. If on your spy at a battleground you occupy, opponent loses 2 force. So you liberate that from the data vault here and cause 2 direct damage. So he's doing 4 damage a turn for free. I have a feeling that's not going to last very long, as Ral Ops finally finds their 3rd site here, and it looks like they're going to spread out some people now. Curious that Krennic goes over here, because Krennic, if with opponent's undercover spy, opponent loses 2 force, which can't be reduced. I would have expected to see Krennic go right here to Boosh, but possibly he doesn't. He wants to, like, I'm sure Thrawn's going to move up, and then maybe like Emperor's going to move over, and then that'll get him his 3 battlegrounds. But he could have just reconsolidated these guys. But I'm sure he probably wants to get Thrawn off the ground onto that Star Destroyer, and then probably run this thing away. But I don't know how long he's going to stay flipped for, though, that way. Because Krennic doesn't do anything by himself. So, realistically, Thrawn moves up, Binder runs away. He stops the damage for... He can't stop the drain at Raltier, because the objective doesn't let you. It's only non-Raltier locations that are -1. Nope, he's just going to move Thrawn over to back up Krennic. And I guess he's going to hope that his opponent just has all his ships are out already. He doesn't have any more ships in hand to go beat up the Binder. He's going to bring Krennic up now. Well, he is a pilot, I guess. Seems like an awkward way to do this. Flip discard if Imperials control at least 3 Raltier sites and opponent controls no Raltier locations. So he deployed Krennic and then paid to shuttle Krennic up. He could have just deployed Krennic on the Binder and then just moved these guys around. unless he was trying to flip sooner and hopefully find a better card in his reserve deck that maybe just wasn't there, and he just decided, okay, that didn't work, let me just run away. That could be what Brenson had to do there. The wording on Bright Hope, was that intentional? It goes back. It's consistent with a Decipher made card, Sergeant Barrack, who's one of the biker scouts from Endor, who has the same wording on his card. So Bright Hope was written the way it was to match. That way the ruling would be consistent, and they would both apply similarly. Similarly, yeah, they both function similarly in the gameplay. So it looks like Stubley stepped away for a minute. Maybe it was his turn to go pee. Well, these guys are going at it here. We also have ISB versus Old Allies. Well, that game's going to take forever. Chris Kelly, Greg Shaw, two good players. That game's really going to take a while. And then you've got Map versus Old Allies, which, again, we just kind of caught a glimpse of between Munchenka and Tom, just getting underway as well. So, certainly some other interesting games going on in the lobby. We'll check back in on those a little bit later. I do want to get to our featured game of the night. We're done with that. You know what? I'm going to let you guys pick. Do you guys want to see Hyperdrive versus CCT or Diplo versus Tatooine CRV? I'll let you guys pick tonight. Vote now. Vote now. Vote now. There's 10 of you watching. I know other more than just Wayne must have an opinion as to which game you want me to review. Oh, there's a second vote. All right, that's kind of the game I wanted to review as well. But I figured I'd let you guys pick. So, we'll save this one for another day. This duel between two superfans, Marines and Sean, who neither one of them seem to be on tonight. So, must not be that big of superfans if you're not even watching the show. All right, so this is an interesting matchup here between Jared, who, as I mentioned earlier, is sitting in second place on top of the leaderboard, and Marines 28. Marines is dark side. He's playing CCT. Now, the interesting thing about this matchup is that the CCT deck is going to automatically flip because he's not using Jabba's prize. He's making his opponent give him a rebel, so yes, he can try and like carbon freeze him and do that kind of damage and stuff. So his opponent has to give him a rebel from his reserve deck, but it's Hyperdrive, and Hyperdrive can't really play any rebels, so he's got nobody to give him. Now, the downside to that is that he gets to verify his. He should get to verify his entire deck. Yep. Marines verifies Jared's deck. So he just got to look at every single card in his entire deck and know exactly what his opponent has and doesn't have, because there are no rebels for him to give. It is an unfortunate situation when decks like this match up against each other. But on the flip side of it, with his objective starting flipped already, he can't go get his other locations. So he may end up getting force screwed by that. So yes, he's got extra information, but now he can't get his docking base. He can't get his audience chamber if he was playing the docking bays. He certainly should be playing an audience chamber, so now that's going to be floating through the deck. He doesn't have a rebel or anybody to carbon freeze, so that's going to certainly hinder what the CCT deck is trying to do as well. But on the plus side, the flip side of the objective, which we don't get to see very often, aliens and independent starships become immune to less than 4. Once during your control phase, you just get to retrieve a force. And this does some stuff with scum, which probably won't come into play. And the objective will remain flipped for the entire game. So every control phase he gets to retrieve a force, and his aliens and independent starships are immune to less than 4. So Zuckuss and Mist Hunter is immune to less than 4. Dengar and Punishing One, maybe Bosk and Houndstooth. Anything else like Slave One or whatnot would probably be the virtual ship, which has immunity already. And on the other side, we got Hyperdrive. This is the... Oh, he's doing 12 card too. Yep. So we've got Hyperdrive, which starts credits, and he's going with the new Jedi business. So we'll go through these effects as well. This is the new virtual set 10 Hyperdrive, which we haven't really seen much yet, and came out with Ral Ops in the last set. So it's not too much different from the standard objective. They just cleaned up a few things and decided rather than errata the card, they would just make a virtual version of it. No, Wayne, yeah, your opponent gets to verify your deck. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but yeah, if there is no rebel in your deck, you have the right to verify that there aren't any. So that's how that would play out in real life as well. So some people may want to call a judge and have them do it. Maybe they don't want to have that extra advantage or feel like they're getting unsportsmanlike information or whatever. But you have every right to. That's the way the game should be played, and by doing something different, you're kind of breaking the rules by asking a judge to do the verification for you. So Hyperdrive here. You still can't play anything other than aliens or public characters in Episode 1 Jedi. You don't lose any force to Agents of the Black Sun or Your Destiny, since you can't play Luke. You're not punished for that. You can go get an Episode 1 system, and then you flip this card if you have 4 or more cards beneath credits will do fine, which it lets you stack, which lets you start as well. So if you force drain or win a battle at Watto's Junkyard, opponent loses a force and it gets stacked here. When you have 4 cards stacked, then you flip the Hyperdrive objective. The flip side of the objective, Republic characters, power and forfeit bonus. Aliens don't have their deploy cost modified on Tatooine locations, so things like Scum don't work. Things like the camp that add to their deploy cost also don't work. Whenever you complete a non-substituted Battle Destiny draw, you can retrieve a force, which you can take into hand. So if you don't play like a Dark Light or Spin to substitute a draw, and if you don't cancel it with Jedi Levitation to redraw it, you just draw a card, and that card sticks, and you resolve it. You get to retrieve a force, and you get to take it into hand. It's not any card, it's retrieve 1 force. So it's the top card of your lost pile that you would retrieve, and if you want to take it into hand, you can. Once during opponent's turn, if Queen ship at a system, activate up to 2 force. Doesn't really happen all that often, but it could. During your control phase, opponent loses 1 force for each battleground occupied by Amidala or Jar Jar. That is a bit more likely to happen. The old objective says occupied by a senator, so like you'd play senator versions of Amidala and stuff like that. And in Legacy, there was a Senator Jar Jar, I think. So, but no need to waste deck slots with extra senators who don't do anything for you. They just kind of revised this to do a little ping damage with Amidala and Jar Jar, which is very thematic because those were the 2 people just kind of running around on Tatooine in the movie. I must be allowed to speak, of course, is our farm puller. Chewie would get a card, and there probably is a Lando in here as well, because you can play Lando with Vibroax, who adds Destiny on Tatooine. So that's 2 cards here. But you're not going to see Leia or Luke, because I don't think there is... I mean, you could play an alien version of Leia, but I think that would be the terrible version from the Jedi pack. She may not even be an alien. She may still be a rebel. think she is still a rebel. And then Jedi Business is our new card, which makes Qui-Gon deploy cheaper, gives Mace a nice little bump, lets you get Mos Espa out, so it gives you another, or possibly a system if you wanted it, but most likely you're going to get Mos Espa on this to give you another Tatooine location for your guys. And it lets you get your Episode 1 guys, Mace, Qui-Gon, and Obi, some lightsabers. And our last effect is We're Leaving, which once per game may stack the top card of your lost pile beneath credits will do fine. So it gives you one free stack by stacking the card from your lost pile. You can also examine cards stacked beneath credits and place any two in its owner's lost pile to upload or retrieve into hand a starship. So it lets you get your ships back, because usually this deck only runs 1 or 2 ships, and typically once cards are stacked on credits and you flip the objective when you get to the 4, after that they don't do anything, so this kind of gives you a nice little added bonus. The Obi-Wan Padawan Learner Virtual, which we'll see probably 3 or 4 copies of in this deck, also gives you a benefit whenever a card is stacked on credits. He lets you go through your deck and get like any non-character card out of your reserve deck. So he's good for pulling locations or location pullers and things like that. So you kind of want to save this once per game stack until Obi hits the table. But there are certainly decks that have taken advantage of this outside of credits and Obi. There used to be a Tatooine Careful Planning version that would start the system and Obi's hut, and then you would like deploy Obi for I think 1 force, and then stack your starting interrupt, and then Obi would go get you like another battleground or something, and then you just move Obi right on into that site and start cycling your deck through that way. So all right, and let's go full screen on this, give you guys a little more viewability. So we certainly see some beatdown potential here in Marine's opening hand. We've got Mauls, we've got Emperors, we've got Dooku, we've got Stormtrooper Garrison and Tarkin, and Dark Jedi Presence, which doubles the power of each Imperial. So if it was like Dooku, Garrison, Tarkin, in a or Vader, all in like a battle together. Let's slow this down just a tad. I think I might have sped this up in the beginning. You could get crazy power totals with that. He did go pretty fast. Turn 1, he spent his 6 force and sent Maul right to the Tatooine site. This is the Tatooine Maul we don't see all that often. He's pretty good for dueling. He also happens to have this wonderful text here. Unless opponent's character of ability greater than 3, their total ability equals 0. So basically it's like there's nobody there. Doesn't matter how many guys they have there. If none of them are ability greater than 3, they're just basically blanked, and you can drain right over top of them and things. They don't occupy for things like battle plan. Usually it's why you see them in space. You know, like they set up home 1 with Akbar, and then you're like, and then you put Maul down, and now that's not there. Then they put a guy with ability 4 down and usually battle you, but there's ways around that too. But good to see a different version of Maul being played once in a while. Still like to see more Young Apprentice being played, but he just doesn't seem to make the cut. Usually any deck you'd want to play him in, EPP Maul just seems more card efficient. So Jared gets out Mos Espa with his Jedi Business. He got out the farm with his I Must Be Allowed to Speak. Getting good activation already. But Darkseid's getting pretty good activation too. They add Dooku for backup and draw a couple of cards as well. And Lightside is going to wisely take a different approach and go off planet. And they're just going to send Master Qui-Gon over here to the Carbonite Freezing Chamber. And Maul and Dooku are already down, so that's 2 of the strongest characters have already been committed to the table. You'd have to assume that there's a Vader or something, or maybe a Kylo EPP or whatnot floating around, but it doesn't look like we're seeing a lot of EPPs from Marines here, so. I'm trying to figure out just exactly what he wants to do here. think he's going to spread out on Tatooine and try and get some better drains. But with battle plan out, paying 3 just to drain for 1 at this site doesn't really do a whole lot. So Hyperdrive normally would want to flip, but when your opponent kind of stacks up your junkyard like this, well, might not be a bad time to go somewhere else. The other benefit from the objective on the 0 side here, unless present with Qui-Gon, Maul is immune to attrition, so Maul's completely immune over here. Now, Jedi Business does something similar, which is, unless he's with Anakin or Vader, Mace is immune to attrition. So, if Mace Windu decided to show up over here and take on Darth Maul, they'd both be immune completely to attrition, and then it would come down to weapon swings and battle damage and whatnot. Marines draws a monster hand, probably trying to just get some cards going. He did pull Resistance to get 3 battlegrounds here, so this drain was only for 2. But he has left himself a little thin here, and we do see Mace, and now Mace might get a lightsaber. And it was there, so Maul's looking to be in a bit of trouble. Because like we said, both are completely immune to attrition because of their respective cards, but Mace has got a weapon, and weapons tend to trump immunity to attrition. Now Marines does have Projective Telepathy, which is a bit of an annoying card, because it requires opponent to use 2 force to can't, otherwise the battle or force drain is cancelled. So he's got to pay a little extra. And Jared also wisely pulled the only Jedi carry that weapon shield, which says for opponent to steal a weapon from target character using a non-Episode 1 card. Episode 1 cards being Aura Singh at the time, I think, is the only one who steals a weapon from a character. You must first draw Destiny. Destiny +1 greater than ability, the weapon is stolen, otherwise you put the stealing card out of play. So he did try and play Weapon Lev, which, as we saw, if a battle initiated, you can try and steal it, but he's going to have to draw a 7 to do it. He may have a 7 in the deck, I don't know. He draws a 6, close. I'm sure he would have loved to have drawn that for Battle Destiny. But that will fail, and now he's also lost his weapon levitation, which he would have more likely used to search his used pile to get weapons for his main characters. And he force fields the first swing, but Mace gets the swing twice, much like Maul. But starting off with some low destiny, so this may not work. Yep, he's just going to miss. I did want to scroll back up through the chat for a second here. I want to see where that mace came from. Gotta pause this for a second. I just want to see if the mace came from hand or if he used the city outskirt text to pull it, because that will obviously change how the he used the city outskirts text. Okay, so he used the once per game text on the city outskirts, which once per game you can deploy a Jedi here from reserve deck. So he used that, got mace while he was in there, verified that the lightsaber was there, and deployed the lightsaber on mace afterwards. So Darkseid actually wins the battle, and they're both completely immune to attrition. So swing and a miss there for Mace Windu, and he's going to opt to go find a better location to work with here, and he's going to move over in front of Dooku instead. Could certainly be fearful of Maul trying to blind duel him to get rid of him. But I think he's going to find he's going to be in just a bit more trouble. Luckily, he does have a barrier, okay, because we were about to see the Stormtrooper Garrison and Tarkin. The garrison here says, well, with an Imperial leader, he adds a battle destiny. And also, while he's at an opponent's site, you're force drain +1 there. So Tarkin being an Imperial leader would have come down, added a battle destiny. Tarkin himself says if he's with Vader or an Imperial leader, he also adds a destiny. So you could possibly see Tarkin come down and then like Vader move over, and suddenly this is 24 power and 3 battle destiny. And that would certainly be problematic. I think he played the wrong shield. Yep, you're just going to pay upkeep and call it a day. Okay. Yeah, this looks to be a very aggressive, mains-heavy, battle-oriented CCT. Probably trying to grab a rebel, freeze him, cause 8 force loss, and then use, big mains and Jedi presence and that kind of stuff to get in a big beatdown and try and cause additional big swings of force loss. Not looking to play a long, kind of drawn-out game, just looking to take big chunks out of your opponent. The downside to that is it's a very expensive deck, especially starting flipped and having to dig for his audience chamber and things like that. He was only getting like 10 or 12 force for the first couple turns, and most of his guys cost 6+ to deploy. So, oh, and here's the Obi that I was talking about. If a card was just stacked on credits, will do fine. May upload a non-character card. And while he's at the opponent's junkyard, its game text is canceled. The dark side junkyard says that if Watto's there, light side doesn't draw a battle destiny. So Obi cancels that. Otherwise, the Hyperdrive Watto matchup is well, actually, you convert their site, so that wouldn't work on that. But just, I guess, to give him a little extra flavor text, or just in case somehow that ever became a thing, Obi stops the Watto's junkyard. So he opts to take Sorry About the Mess combo out of his reserve deck, and he initiates battle here. Not 100% sure why. Did he forget Maul's immune to attrition? Didn't have a lightsaber pull for him either. So it's going to end up being a tie, and he gets lucky because Obi's only immune to less than 4. So it's a big push. Nothing happens. Nobody dies. Thanks for playing, guys. And Obi will now back up Mace. Oh, he's going to move 2 sites over in front of... that's the other thing. Obi's land speed equals 2. I think we covered that. Yeah, he's land speed equal 2. Oh, both these guys are going to get out of dodge, and they're going to go pay Darth Vader a visit. So it looks like what Jared's plan is basically just to keep his opponent occupied at these sites as long as he can, while Qui-Gon sits over here and just drains, and hopefully just keeps draining his opponent down, making him commit more guys and more forces, trying to chase these guys around. While Qui-Gon just kind of gets off the hook over here, because all these good characters are stuck on Tatooine, unless there's an Ellis or something coming up. We also got to see a new virtual card there, Jedi Mind Trick. This is, we saw Projective Telepathy earlier, this is the light side version of it. Opponent just initiated a battle or force drain, use 2 force or it's cancelled. The only difference is this one also has a bonus feature to make it even better, because it's a virtual card. And they often have extra game text. If your Jedi in battle, unless he's with a Dark Jedi, a Hutt, or a Tordarian, because mind tricks don't work on them, wave hand at, you literally have to do it. It's written on the card. It's like saying Star Destroyer. You got to say it. Add or subtract 2 from an opponent's just drawn destiny. So you can add 2 to a destiny draw like Sense or something to make them miss, or subtract 2 from a weapon destiny or something like that. You can add 2. It's in a battle, so I was going to say it doesn't work for every destiny, but you can subtract 2 from a dual destiny. lost first strike. He'll retrieve the Dagobah Cave, though. Put that 0 back in his deck. Hopefully he can follow it around. And he's just going to move Vader away. And draw a couple cards. Now, I know he lost IG-88 earlier. I assume, again, typically CCT, they freeze a guy, you put IG-88 with a captive, and then you can start taking cards out of your force pile. And not being able to do that certainly disrupts all of your plans as well. And we'll continue to see light side pay to drain and do drains of 2 and 2. While dark side over here is also draining for 2 and 2. But certainly no need to rush things just yet. And we'll see if light side's ready to go contest the junkyard, or if they're content to just chase Vader around for a little longer. Looks like it's going to answer that question. He gets Obi with a lightsaber now. And we're going to see Obi move over with Solo. Yeah. And then I'll probably leave Mace behind to kind of trap Vader. Vader's kind of stuck in a corner now. So Vader would have to shuffle his way back in front of Mace, where he's more likely to get hit and killed. Although that would mean Mace isn't immune to attrition. He's still immune to less than 8, but he's not completely immune. But I think what we're actually going to see happen is this guy Boba Fett is going to show up, probably with Kylo, and they're going to do some hurting here. Now, the downside to this, though, is we do know he did take the Sorry About the Mess into hand earlier, so he certainly could take a swing at someone and use the Sorry About the Mess combo to remove them from the battle immediately. Nope, he's not battling. I'm surprised by this play from Marines. I figured he would have been. His deck seems like it's a lot more aggressive. He's got all these big characters that want to do big things, and he seems relatively content right now to just kind of chase people around. And I would have thought he would have preferred to do a bit more battling. He's playing a bit more passively than I would have expected. I'm sure it probably comes back to the fact that he doesn't have any weapons and his opponent does. We see Lightside has 3 lightsabers on the table now, and we know they've got Anakin's for a 4th floating around in there somewhere. Quick Destiny check. We see both Chewie and Lando still in the reserve deck. I bet he'd love to have one of those guys right now. Yep. But I think he's finally got what he wanted. He lured, Jared lured, kind of chasing Vader around, forced him to bring some of these guys over. He's going to go get the Force Lightning and take a shot at a clone here. This could be interesting. Let me finish this thought first. He kind of lured some of these guys away from the junkyard, so now we can try and battle, get rid of Dooku, and then slide his guys back over to start competing more again on his terms, dictating where the battles are and who's going to be involved in them. But we do get to see Dooku's text, which is once per game, if opponent just initiated a battle here, you can upload a Force Lightning or a Force Push. He's going to take the Force Lightning, which he can use to zap someone. Now, Rex here, while at an Episode 1 Battleground, he adds a Battle Destiny. So he's adding 1, and then he's providing 3 ability. So he's probably the one you'd want to get rid of. Because, they're both armor 4. So if you were going to try and zap somebody, Rex would probably be the one to go for. with the Force Lightning. He'll play the Projective first, make his opponent spend a few more Force. That actually, he opted to cancel the battle? Interesting. Maybe he didn't like the fact that his opponent got the Force Lightning, because obviously he draws a 4, and it's bye-bye Rex. So maybe the fact that his opponent played the Projective, he just opted to, you know what, that's fine. Let's just cancel this battle and move on, and I'll bring Mace over, and then we can fix this next turn. Ouch. That hurt. So this site here says it's a 2-1. It's drain -1 unless Vader or your trooper here, but if they're both here, it's force drain +1. Vader, trooper, force drain +1, biz 3, and then the garrison adds 1 while at an opponent's site. So this was just a drain of 4. He has 3 battlegrounds, but he doesn't have any shield pulls left to play ultimatum. So he's got to lose 4 here, and that stings a little bit. And he's going to top deck a couple cards, and we're going to see Lando and Neighborin go away. Then his opponent's going to get to continue to do that retrieval that you don't often get to do at CCT. And they'll just continue to pay to drain, and then I will see who he wants to use for backup with the Dooku. He certainly pulled ahead here. He's got this big drain of 4 going. He is going to try and force Lightning Lost and get rid of Rex. And it was a 7. If he was tracking, he could have just killed Mace, but it was a blind, looked like, so that takes away good old Rex. And that'd be interesting to see if he wants to deploy and whatnot. Now, the downside to that is that Dooku has lost his immunity to attrition, so Dooku has no immunity for the remainder of the turn. There's Kylo. Maybe he'll move Snoke back over as well. Yeah, he'll move Snoke back over as well. And looks like he's going to really try and protect this drain of 4 while he can, which is pretty wise. Like I said, he's pulled ahead here in the damage race the last couple of turns. So Marines is just going to try and lean on his opponent a little bit. He's got, looks like it's about a 28 to 16 card advantage. So but there is that sorry about the mess, and it's the non-combo version too, so it can't be canceled. Well, let me say it, the specific cards that cancel sorry about the mess, they cancel Blaster Proficiency, not sorry about the mess, so they affect the combo, not the original version. So Kylo's hit, and he's out of there. Kind of just went for the low-hanging fruit there. He could have got just about anybody with that 8, but I guess not knowing or not trusting his destinies, knowing he still had a character in there or something like that, he opted to go for some of the, oh, and a lightsaber, ouch, opted to go for some of the lower choice options. Lower ability choices, that's what I meant to say. Five and a 3 will hit one of them. He should have swung at Dooku. Dooku's immune to less than 8 with the Jedi, has matching game text to what Mace has. Snoke is he's immune to less than 8 also, less than 4 with Kylo. Kylo's gone now, so he gets his immunity less than 8 back. So they're both immune to less than 8. Well, either he knew that Anakin was there and he wanted to move it to get to, or he didn't know what it was and knows what the bottom card is and was just excited to try and get to it. Interesting. So he uses Solo's game text because he just fired a blaster to play Slight Weapons Malfunction to add... Ah, there you go. I was going to say, he's going to add a Battle Destiny, so he's going to draw 2, but he only has 1 card left, so that didn't quite make a whole lot of sense. But he has a Smokescreen, and this substitutes a Destiny, so if you're about to draw Destiny, use the ability number of one of your characters involved, so he'll use Mace's 7 for his Battle Destiny. You have to do that on the first draw. If you're drawing multiples and you don't have enough cards left, once he draws this card and has no reserve deck left, he can't substitute then, because you wouldn't have anything to draw to substitute for. So just remember that. In the order of things, if he had drawn the first Destiny and then tried to play Smokescreen for Destiny number 2, it would not have worked. So you got to Smokescreen the first one and then draw the second card after it. And it's another Anakin. But it does equal 8, and 8 was enough to crack his immunity. But the Lando Breed card he played earlier, if your character was hit, prevent its forfeit from being reduced for remainder of turn. So Dooku still has his 8 forfeit, so Snoke won't have to die. You missed it. I was looking at that. Darkseid drew Dooku's lightsaber as a 1, and Lightside played They're tracking us to subtract 1 to make it a 0. That means that Lightside wins the battle, so they have to stack a card on credits there. So that's number 2. So just 2 more to go, and then they get to flip. And now Obi moves over with Solo to block the drain of 4, because he can't afford to eat that again. And he saves the remaining 2 force and doesn't draw. Two force could be a clash. Could just be 2 force. Maybe he wants to do something else with an interrupt or something like that. But usually 2 force, Clash of Sabers, and Clash would be certainly good right now, you know. Take away one of the key characters. And that's not going to bode well for Obi-Wan and Solo, because Boba Fett here adds Destiny with an alien or Imperial, or 2 if with a Bounty Hunter or Vader. So Fett's adding 2 with Vader. The Garrison is adding 1 with an Imperial leader, being Tarkin, and Tarkin's about to add 1 for being with Vader. So he's going to have power 25, and he's about to have 5 Battle Destiny against this just 10. So we're going to see if Obi's got any tricks left up his sleeve. He's going to need them. He also has this Dark Jedi Presence, which he's opting to play here. He's going to double the power of his other Imperials. So that's going to add 12 more power, because Tarkin is 4 and the Garrison is 8, so they get doubled. So now it's 37 to 10. Holy beatdowns, Batman. Tarkin adds Destiny. He's going to swing at Vader. You should know what these are, though. This should be the 1. So I don't know why he swung. Oh, because he's got a Jedi. What's the card underneath it? That's Padme? I think it was 5-3 for the second weapon swing. Oh, it's another Anakin. Yeah, either he mistracked or whatnot, but he could have hit somebody. Oh, he can't swing at Tarkin. I guess maybe it didn't matter either way. He can't swing at Tarkin because of the garrison. Imperial leaders present may not be targeted by weapons. He could have swung at the garrison. Not that that would help him a whole lot, but at least he would hit something. Um, Knowing that because he obviously knows he should have known the cards are there because he just drew them for Battle Destiny. So it should be a 4 and a 1. Um, doesn't hit Fett. He's a 5. His lightsaber adds 1 if targeting a Dark Jedi. So for 1 plus 1 is 6. That still misses Vader. So really the only person he could have swung at and hit with those cards was the garrison. Unless he forgot, like if he might have remembered they're tracking us in Anakin, he's like, well, I'll just Jedi left the Anakin, not remembering the order of the cards underneath it, and that it was another Anakin behind it. So that's we'll call it a minor misplay. I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot unless he's got a Hoojix, because this battle's about to be game ending otherwise. Because light side was down 27 at the start of the battle, and they're drawing its 5 Battle Destiny to 1. And so far, these draws have been pretty solid. He's already up to 18. We assume it's going to be at least a 2 or a 3, right? So 21. No, it's a 1. So he gets the 19. Oh, Tarkin can redraw that because he's less than the number of Imperials present. There's 3 Imperials, so he can redraw that. And it doesn't matter. So he gets to 19, which gives him a total of 56. There's the Padme. Okay, so she was an extra card down. And again, that's going to be what he was thinking. It was Anakin and Padme, kind of like I did, but at least he should have been paying a little more attention as it was his game. Um, and I'm trying to do 3 things at once here. And he does not have the Hoojix, so that will be our game-ending beatdown. 42 battle damage, 43 battle damage rather, that he is due to take there. They cover about 15, right? Solo 7 and Obi's 8. So that'll cover 15. That'll leave him to lose another 27 cards on top of it, which is game ending. So perhaps the slow, methodical, just kind of dink and dunk your way around Tatooine worked out pretty well for Marines here. And thanks for him for submitting the links. At least we could get a look at 2 different decks that we don't feature as often. Sometimes you get tired of just reviewing the same old Allies throne room type games all day. So thanks to him for sending that over. Take a quick peek back. Hey, look, Map and Old Allies are still playing, and ISB and Old Allies are still playing. We did a whole 35, 40-minute game review, and these games are still going on. So I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Obviously, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Don't forget to renew your subscriptions. Also, if you scroll down on the main page there on Twitch, you can find the personal pages to both myself and Wise Marcellus. We have our own Twitch pages where we stream games that we play. You get to hear our live thought process as we're going through our interactions. Wise has been streaming almost every single day. All of his OCS matches so far. How many does he have left? So he did all 12 for both February and March, and he's played 6 so far in April, so he's been streaming all those as well. And I'm sure he always would appreciate the support, people following along on him and watching his gameplay. He doesn't read the chat while he's playing, so feel free to comment away all you want. It's not going to influence him in any way in terms of what's going on with the game and the outcome. But we'll see you guys back here next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. You guys have a great night. Thanks for watching.